Hello there everyone, my name is David Luchford and welcome to lesson 26 of my Ancient Greek course. In today's lesson we are going to put our newfound knowledge of the third declension into practice. Last time we learned how to recognise that a noun is a 3E noun or a 3F noun, and we learned how 3E nouns and 3F nouns decline. So we'll be putting our knowledge of those things into practice today. However, we shall also be using our prior learning, so make sure you know the content of the videos before the last one as well. But before we do that, we are going to take a look at my virtual sets of shelves, starting with the most recent one. And oh my goodness, we can see that since the last lesson, Louise has bought me 5 virtual amphorae, Royce has bought me 3 virtual amphorae, and Fred, someone, a mysterious individual, but someone, and Richard have also bought me 3 virtual amphorae each. Okay, so that is a lot of virtual amphorae. And I would like to say thank you very much to Louise, to Royce, to Fred, to someone, that mysterious someone, and fifthly, to Richard for your support. I greatly appreciate it. Now, if you would like to support the channel, you can do so by going to www.buymeacoffee.com/learnancientgreek. Anyway, before we move on, let me just say a big thank you once again to Louise, Royce, Fred, someone, and Richard. And I also want to say thank you very much to everyone who has supported me in the past too. You can see that I have now amassed quite a collection of amphorae, which makes me incredibly happy. You know, if I'm ever feeling down, I can just take a look at this wonderful collection of virtual amphorae and I shall be re-energized. I shall be infused with motivation. And you know, I can do the same thing with the comments and the likes. So be sure to like the video and leave a comment if you enjoy it. And don't forget to subscribe too. Anyway, with that said, let us go on to exercise 1, which is a classification exercise. Now we are going to be doing the same types of exercises as we have done recently with the other noun subgroups, but we're only going to have to do such exercises one more time after today because we've almost finished the third declension, so do keep going, okay? Don't get demoralised. And we're going to be meeting some new words today. How exciting is that? We're going to learn some new nouns, we're going to do some parsing, some translation, everything's going to be wonderful. But let's start then by classifying these nouns. And by that I mean, here you've got 10 nouns, they belong to different declensions. Each noun could be a first declension noun, a second declension noun, or a third declension noun. Now it's your task to state which subgroup of a declension each of these nouns belongs to. So please do pause the video and state which subgroup of a declension each one of these nouns belongs to. Okay, we're now going to go through the answers. Number 1 is plertos, which means crowd or multitude, and it is a 3C noun. We know it's a 3C noun because its nominative singular ends in os and its genitive singular ends in ous. And like all 3C nouns, it is neuter. Number 2 is pelekous, which means axe, and it is a 3E noun. We know that because its nominative singular ends in ous and its genitive singular ends in eos. And because of the nominative singular ending ous, we know that this is a 3E noun of the second kind, like presbus. And also, if you remember what I told you about the pattern concerning the gender of 3E nouns in the last lesson, we can see that this fits in with that pattern because it is masculine. I said that 3E nouns of the second kind are masculine, while 3E nouns of the first kind, the ones that end in is in the nominative singular, tend to be feminine. In fact, they're almost always feminine. Number 3, perses, means Persian, as in a Persian person, and it is a 1D noun. We know that because its nominative singular ends in es and its genitive singular ends in u. And like all 1D nouns, it is masculine. Moreover, I should say that because of the nominative singular ending es, we know that this is a 1D noun of the first kind, like nauters. Because remember, there are two kinds of 1D noun. There are those that end in es in the nominative singular, and those that end in ars in the nominative singular. Number 4 is mantis, which means prophet or seer. Mantis is a 3E noun. We know that because its nominative singular ends in is, and its genitive singular ends in eos. And because of the ending is in the nominative singular, we know that this is a 3E noun of the first kind, like polis. Moreover, this too fits in with the pattern that I taught you about the gender because it is feminine. We said that the ones that end in is are almost always feminine. Number 5 is toxon, which means bow. Toxon is a 2B noun. We know that because the nominative singular ends in on and the genitive singular ends in u. The 6th one is missu, which means copper ore. Missu is a 3F noun. We know that because its nominative singular ends in u and its genitive singular ends in eos. Now, I did tell you last time that there are not many 3F nouns, okay? I said that in my reading of Greek, to my recollection, astiu is the only one that I've seen when I've actually been reading a Greek text. And I did find it a bit of a task to find another 3F noun, but I found one, okay? Missu means copper ore, and in particular, the LSJ says that it's a type of copper ore found in Cyprus. Okay, so this isn't the most common of nouns, to tell you the truth, but it is a 3F noun, so it's useful for recognising a 3F noun. Number 7 is skerner, which means hut, tent, or stage. Skerner is a 1A noun. We know that because its nominative singular ends in er and its genitive singular ends in ers. And like all 1A nouns, it is feminine. Number 8 is haima, which means blood. Haima is a 3B noun. We know that because its genitive singular ends in os and it is neuter. Remember that with 3A nouns and 3B nouns, what matters most of all in terms of determining a noun subgroup is the genitive singular ending being os alone and then the gender. Those are the two things that enable you to recognise a 3A noun or a 3B noun as such. Number 9 is oinos, which means wine. Oinos is a 2A noun. We know that because its nominative singular ends in os and its genitive singular ends in u. And like most 2A nouns, it is masculine. There are some feminine 2A nouns and some common gender 2A nouns, but most of them are masculine. Number 10 is dynamis, which means power, capacity, or ability. Dynamis is a 3E noun. We know that because its nominative singular ends in is and its genitive singular ends in eos. And because of the nominative singular ending in is, we know that it is a 3E noun of the first kind in particular, like polis. So, I hope that you correctly identified which subgroup each of these nouns belongs to. Here are the new nouns that we've just met, organised by their subgroup and organised alphabetically within their subgroups. I'm now going to mention some links to English which might help us to remember their meanings. The first one, skerner, means hut, tent, or stage. If we transliterate skerner, at least using one method of transliteration, then we get scene. Scene is just a transliteration of the word skerner. So that helps us to remember the meaning stage, because a stage is where a scene is set in theatrical terms, but it doesn't help very much with regard to remembering hut or tent. Perhaps you could come up with some personal link where you remember that actors live in a kind of temporary dwelling when they're filming on set, you know. You could picture that as their hut or their tent, maybe. You can make that personal link to remember those other two meanings. The second one, Persers, means Persian. We know that it's got to be a proper name of some kind because it begins in a capital Pi. Here, in particular, it's the name of a person of a certain ethnicity. And on top of that, the Pers part is the same as in the word Persian. We've got P-E-R-S at the start of Persian, and it's where we get the word Persian from. So, if we recognise that it's a proper name and that it looks a lot like the word Persian, we should be able to remember that it means Persian. Number 3, oinos means wine. We do get some words in English from this. One word that I'm thinking of is enophile. An enophile is a lover of wine. I know it's not the most common word in the world, but it is a derivative from oinos. We get this en part at the start from oinos. Now you might be wondering why this word has OE rather than OI. And that is because in Latin, the Greek diphthong, oi, that is omicron iota, was transliterated as OE, because the Latin diphthong, oi, was written OE in the Latin alphabet. And that's why the traditional transliteration of the Greek diphthong oi is OE. That explains why, for example, the tragic figure Oedipus is rendered in English Oedipus with an OE at the start rather than an OI, even though in Greek he's got the diphthong oi at the start of his name. So you might be able to remember oinos by linking it to the word enophile. Now the fourth one, toxon, gives us the word toxic. Now, they mean quite different things, right? Toxon means a bow, and toxic means poisonous. So you might think, how does toxon give us toxic? Well, the word toxon gives us the Greek adjective toxikos, which means of or for the bow. And toxikos was applied to the noun parmakon. Parmakon means poison or drug, and if you apply the adjective to it, you get the phrase parmakon toxikon, which means a poison for the bow. And this was the poison that was smeared on arrows to make arrows poisonous. And so that's where the link to poison comes from. So I hope that helps you to remember that toxon means bow. The next one is haima. Haima means blood. If we transliterate haima, then we get hema, which gives us words like hemophobia, which is the fear of blood, and also hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a scientific term referring to a protein in red blood cells which transports oxygen. Okay, the next one, plertos, meaning crowd or multitude, gives us the word plethora in English. Dynamis means power, capacity, or ability. That gives us the word dynamic in English. So that might help you to remember that it means power, capacity, or ability. Mantis means prophet or seer. And it does give us the word mantis in English. And in fact, even in ancient Greek, it could mean mantis in the sense of the insect, a praying mantis. And a mantis is called a mantis because of the appearance, particularly the praying gesture. That's why the term mantis, which usually meant prophet or seer, was applied to the insect, a mantis, because of its resembling a prophet or seer. So you can use that to remember that mantis means prophet or seer. It can also mean mantis, but very rarely, okay? I think it only means that in the writings of Theocritus. So otherwise, it will mean prophet or seer, okay? 99% of the time, it will mean prophet or seer. The next one is pelekios, which means axe. We get the word pelican from pelekios, and that's because a pelican has a huge beak which apparently resembles an axe. It resembles the blade of an axe. And so that's why a pelican is called a pelican. Okay, you can use that to remember the meaning of pelekios, but don't be translating pelekios as pelican, okay? That would be wrong. It means axe. Now the last one, misu, meaning copper ore, I do not know any derivatives for, okay? This is a very rare word. If you know a derivative from misu, meaning copper ore, then please do share it in the comments, okay? I will be very impressed if you know a derivative from monsieur, because I certainly do not, at least none are coming to mind right now. Anyway, having made those links, please do pause the video and make sure you've got these new nouns noted down for your reference, okay? Make sure you note down all of the information on the screen. Now, before we go on to the next exercise, please make sure that you know the 2 3 nouns and 1 3F noun that we have already met as well. Those are polis, presbys, and astiu. Please pause the video if you need to note them down, but you should know them from the last video. Okay, with that done, let's go on to exercise 2, which is a parsing exercise. Here we have 10 different 3E or 3F nouns, but they're in different forms, okay? So they're in different cases and numbers. Your job is to specify their gender, case, and number. So please pause the video and state the gender, case, and number of each of these nouns and list as many possibilities as you can, okay? Because some of these are ambiguous. Okay, let's now go through the answers. The first one, peleke, is masculine dative singular. Now we know it's masculine either by having learned that individually or by knowing that pelekous is a 3 noun of the second kind and that all of those are masculine. And we know that it's dative singular by knowing that the ending a, that is epsilon iota, is the dative singular ending for 3 nouns of the second kind. Now, I'm not going to explain how we know the gender, case, and number of all of the following nouns because the same explanation applies. We can know the gender either by having learned it individually or through knowing about the gender of nouns in that noun's particular subgroup, and we know the case and number from the ending. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments below. The second one, manti, is feminine vocative singular. Number 3, dynamis, is feminine, nominative or accusative or vocative, plural. Number 4, miseos, is neuter genitive singular. Number 5, presbyu, is masculine vocative singular. Number 6, mantin, is feminine accusative singular. Number 7, polesin, is feminine dative plural. Number 8, astiu, is neuter nominative or accusative or vocative singular. Number 9, manteon, is feminine genitive plural. Number 10, pelekun, is masculine accusative singular. So I hope that you correctly identified the gender, case, and number of each of these nouns, and that you recognised all of the possibilities where there were multiple possibilities. Let's now go on to some translation, okay? And today I have 10 sentences for you. Let's go, you know. This is such an exciting time, I know. You must be thrilled right now. I hope you are. I hope you're on the edge of your seat with excitement concerning translating these sentences. In all seriousness though, I hope that you do enjoy this translation practice. So here are the first 5 sentences, okay? There's just one new word, which is glossed in the word bank. So please now pause the video and translate these sentences into English. And here we have another 5 sentences for you to translate. And this time the word bank is a lot bigger, okay? But don't be intimidated, it's all fine. The word bank will explain all you need to know about the underlined words. With that said, please now pause the video and translate these additional 5 sentences into English. Okay, we're now going to go through the translations of all 10 of these Greek sentences. Number 1 was to ton eunikon pletos pros ton limena treche. You should have translated this as the crowd of women is running towards the harbour. Now we know that it means this because if we go through it word by word, we're able to recognise the function that each word is performing in the sentence, okay? So let's start with the first 4 words. To, ton, gynaikon, pletos. Now we have 2 definite articles next to each other here, but neither of them is a repeated definite article. And so here, we're dealing with the sandwich construction. We have a genitive sandwich, okay? We have a definite article here and a genitive definite article right after it. And essentially a genitive phrase has been sandwiched in between to and pletos. Now to, pletos, we know means the crowd or the multitude. But from the ending and the form of the definite article, we're not yet sure whether it's nominative or accusative, okay? So let's bear that in mind for now, that it could be either nominative or accusative, but either way it means the crowd or the multitude. In the middle of it, we've got ton gynaikon. We know that gynaikon is the genitive plural form of gyna, meaning woman, and ton is also the genitive plural definite article. So because of that, we know that this has to be genitive plural and must therefore mean of the women. So literally it's the crowd of the women, but we could just say the crowd of women in English, because it sounds quite unnatural, I think, to say the crowd of the women. We will just say the crowd of women in English. The crowd of women, and then we've got pros ton limena. Pros is a preposition governing the accusative, and it means towards, and the thing that something is going towards, therefore, goes directly after pros, and it goes in the accusative. And that thing is right here, ton limena, which is the harbour. We know limen is harbour, and we know from the ending here, added on to the oblique stem limen, and from the masculine accusative singular definite article, that this is in the accusative. And it must be in the accusative. What we do need to check though is the number. We know it's singular both from the ending and from the definite article. So this must mean towards the harbour, singular. So far we've got the crowd of women towards the harbour, and we've got the verb treche. Treche is from the verb trechor, the verb to run. Here it's treche because he, she or it is running. And now we know that to pletos, the crowd, must be in the nominative. It must be the subject, because you can't conceive it as accusative, essentially. It's not possible to take it as an accusative noun. It wouldn't fit into the sentence as an accusative. But if we take it as a nominative, it works very nicely, because then we've got the crowd of women doing the action, which is running. So the crowd of women runs or is running towards the harbour. Number 2 is mantin entei oikiai heiuriskusin hoist ratiotai. You should have translated this one as, the soldiers find a prophet in the house, or the soldiers find a seer in the house. Now, to go through this word by word, mantin is accusative singular. We know that because of the ending in, which for 3 e-nouns of the first kind is the accusative singular ending. So, a prophet or a seer must be the direct object. The action of the verb must be being done directly to a seer or a prophet. And we say a because there is no definite article before it. And then we've got ente oikiai. En is a preposition governing the dative, and it means in or on. We've got the house after it in the dative singular, which we know from the ending and also from the form of the definite article. And so we would say in the house. So far we've got a prophet or a seer in the house. Then we've got heiuriskusin, which means they find. The verb heiuriskor means find. Here it ends in usin because they are doing it. And if we look at the end of the sentence, then we get the subject, we're told, who that they is. Namely, hoist ratiotai. Stratiotes is a 1D noun, meaning soldier. Here, we know from the ending I and from the definite article hoi that it is nominative plural. And so the soldiers must be doing the action. And therefore, it is the soldiers find a prophet or a seer in the house. And here is an illustration of that sentence. Mantin en dei oikiai heuriskusin hoistratiotai. The soldiers find a prophet in the house. Now, you'll remember that I said in the writings of Theocritus, mantis can actually mean mantis. Okay, so just for some fun, why don't we see how this sentence would look visually in the world of Theocritus? Looks quite different, right? If we take mantis to mean mantis rather than a prophet or a seer, this gives us quite a different image. But do bear in mind that mantis means prophet or seer in the overwhelming majority of cases. In fact, every time I've encountered it in Greek, it has had the meaning prophet or seer rather than mantis. Let's go on to number 3 now. Number 3 is ho strategos enteis genei nun kateiudei. You should have translated this one as the general now sleeps in the tent, or the general now sleeps in the hut, or the general is now sleeping in the hut or in the tent. Or on the stage. You could have said on the stage, but I think in the tent or in the hut is more probable. Now we know that it means this because ho strategos is the general, and the general is in the nominative singular, which we know from the ending os, and also from the form of the definite article. So the general must be doing the action, and then we've got enteis genei, which is either in the hut, in the tent, or on the stage. We know that it's just one hut or stage or tent from the form of the definite article, which is the feminine dative singular form, and also from the ending a, which for 1a nouns, which skene is one of, is the dative singular ending. Next we've got the adverb nun, which means now. We had to get that from the word bank. Now, bear in mind, I just used now in my explanation, but anyway, now, bear in mind that the word now in Greek, nun, would have a circumflex above the upsilon, okay? So it would be a long upsilon for that reason. When you're reading a Greek text, the word now, nun, will have a circumflex above it, but as I'm leaving accents out, it is not there right now. So this word means now, and then we've got kateiudei. Kateiudor is the verb to sleep, and here it ends in a because he, she, or it is doing the action, and we know who that he is. We know it's the general. So the general now sleeps in the tent. Number 4 is pelekyn chodoulos perei doi despotei. You should have translated this one as the slave is carrying an axe for the master, or the slave carries an axe for the master, or the slave carries or is carrying an axe to the master. Any of those would be fine. We know that it means this because at the start we've got pelekyn, which is axe, but here it's in the accusative singular, which we know from the ending un. Because there's no definite article, we would just say an axe, and we know that the axe must be the direct object since it's in the accusative. But we wouldn't say the axe, we would say an axe because of the lack of definite article, as I've already mentioned. So we've got an axe, and then we've got chodoulos, which is the slave, and the slave must be the subject because the definite article is masculine nominative singular, and the ending os is the nominative singular ending for 2a nouns. So we've got an axe as the direct object, the slave as the subject, perei is he, she, or it, carries. And we know who the he is, we know that it's the slave, so far we've got the slave carries or is carrying an axe, and then we've got toi, despote. We know from the form of the definite article and from the ending that the master here is in the dative singular, and so we would say either for the master or to the master. I think with pero, it's typically for if you have a dative. However, it can also mean to. I have checked that, and in certain Greek texts, they do use the dative to mean to with the verb pero, the verb to carry, but they can also use pros with the accusative instead to mean to someone in the accusative. So overall then we had the slave carries or is carrying an axe to or for the master. Number 5 is oi moi prosten polin trehusin hoi persai. You should have translated this one as, oh no, the Persians are running towards the city. We know that it means this because oi moi is oh no, or an equivalent expression. Prostan polin is towards the city. Pros takes the accusative, and tan polin is accusative singular, which we know from the form of the definite article that's used, and also from the ending in, which is the accusative singular ending for 3 nouns of the first kind. So we've got oh no, towards the city. Trehusin is they run, or they are running, and hoi persai, the Persians, are the subject, which we know from the masculine nominative plural definite article hoi, and also the ending I, which is the nominative plural ending for 1D nouns. So overall then, it must be, oh no, the Persians run or are running towards the city. In ancient Greece, that was not a good thing, okay. Number 6 is poi baines or presbu. You should have translated this one as, where are you going, old man? We know that it means this because poi is a question word meaning where to. You can just translate it as where, but know that it means where in the sense of where to, like in the phrase, where are you going? Baines is you singular are going. Bainor's the verb to go, and here it ends in ace, so that means that you singular are doing the action. So where are you going? And then we have or presbu. Let me say first of all that presbu is vocative singular, which we know from the ending u, which for 3 e nouns of the second kind is the vocative singular ending. And now, what about this or here? In an actual Greek text, it would have a circumflex above it, okay, just so you know, but or means o. And as I've put in the word bank, it's often used when directly addressing someone, but it may be omitted from your translation. This is because in English we don't really say oh now when we're addressing somebody. So literally, this says, where are you going, oh old man? But we don't really say it now. You might know it, okay? Leave a comment, let me know. Have you heard people say oh before when they're addressing people? You usually hear it in formal contexts. So for example, you do hear it in religious speech. When people are addressing God, they might say something like, O most mighty God, creator of the universe, etc. So O used to be used in English in formal contexts. And you can translate it, but you don't have to, because it sounds a bit weird to say, where are you going, O old man? But in Greek, it is commonly used before vocatives. It's confirmed that this sentence is a question because at the end we have a semicolon, which is the ancient Greek question mark. Number 7 is to kratos ton poleon ton helenon thalmasdomen. You should have translated this one as, we are amazed by the power of the cities of the Greeks. Now, to kratos is the power, and it's either nominative or accusative. We're not sure until we look at the rest of the sentence, but we know that it's got to be singular from the form of the definite article and from the ending. So this means the power, or the might, or the strength. And then we've got ton poleon. This is of the cities, because it is the cities in the genitive, okay? We have a genitive plural phrase here. We know it's genitive plural from the form of the definite article and the ending on. Those two things let us know that this is a genitive plural phrase. So far we've got the power or the might or the strength of the cities, and then we've got ton helenon, another genitive plural phrase. We know it's genitive plural from the form of the definite article and also from the ending on here. So we'll translate that as of the Greeks, okay? Because a Hellen is a Greek person. Here it's ton Hellenon, so we would say of the Greeks. Thus far we've got the power of the cities of the Greeks, and then we have the verb right at the end, taumazdomen. Taumazdo is the verb to be amazed by, or to wonder at, or to marvel at, and the ending omen means that we are doing it. So, this sentence should have been translated as, we are amazed by the power, which we now know must be accusative, since it can't be nominative, as we are the subject. So, we are amazed by the power of the cities of the Greeks. Okay, number 8 is hoi teoi monais tais mantesi legusin. You should have translated this one as, the gods speak to the prophets alone. Now, we know that it means this because hoi teoi is nominative plural. Teos means God, but here it's nominative plural, and it's with the definite article. We know it's nominative plural either from the form of the definite article or from the ending oi. Both of those things let us know that it's nominative plural, since this is the masculine nominative plural form of the definite article, and for 2a nouns the ending oi is the nominative plural ending. Now, after that we've got monais tais mantesi. Monais is a form of the adjective monos, which I told you is applying to tais mantesi. When we cover adjectives, I shall explain how we know that an adjective is applying to a certain noun, but here I told you that it's going with or applying to tais mantesi. So, let's look at tais mantesi. Well, this comes from the word mantis, but here we've got tais and we've got the ending si, which can sometimes be sin, that's used here. So, we know from the ending si/sin and the definite article tais that this is dative plural. And therefore, it's going to be to the prophets or seers, or for the prophets or seers. But we also have the adjective alone, so we need to say to the prophets alone or for the prophets alone. And when we look at the verb legusin, which means they speak, lego is the verb to speak, here it ends in usin, so we would say they speak, then we realise that it's most appropriate to say to the prophets alone, rather than the gods speak for the prophets alone. So overall then, because the gods are nominative plural, we know that they're the ones doing the speaking, so we've got the gods speak to the prophets alone. Number 9 is hoi persai to hemeteron astiu nun poliorkousin. You should have translated this one as, the Persians are now besieging our city. We know that it means this because hoi persai is nominative plural, as indicated by the definite article in the ending. And then we have to hemeteron asti. Hemeteros means our. Here it's hemeteron because adjectives do change their endings to agree with, that is, match the noun that they describe in terms of gender, case, and number. We shall talk more about that later on. But anyway, we know that it applies to ustiu here because it is sandwiched in between to and ustiu. That's one way we can know that it applies to ustiu. So we've got the Persians as a subject, and then we've got our city. When we have the word our, we don't include the in English. So we wouldn't say the even though the definite article is here. We don't say the our city, we just say our city. So the Persians, our city, the Persians are in the nominative. So we already have a subject, and therefore we can tell that this is going to be accusative. Our city is going to be the direct object. And we have the word nun, which means now. And then we have poliorkousin. Poliorkeor is the verb to besiege. Here it's poliorkousin because they are besieging. It was an epsilon contract verb, but plus u just gives us u, and so we can't see that anymore. Anyway, overall then, we've got the Persians as the subject, and they're the ones doing the action. So the Persians besiege or are besieging our city now. And you could put now either before or after the verb. You could say the Persians are now besieging our city, or the Persians are besieging our city now. Either of those would be fine. Lastly, number 10 is to misiu endei spelungi chodulos zderte. You should have translated this one as the slave is looking for copper ore in the cave. You could have said the slave looks for copper ore in the cave, and you could have said the copper ore if you wanted to. But when you have something like a material, although they might use the definite article in Greek, we can miss it out in English because we don't often say, you know, I am looking for the iron in the cave. You can just say, I am looking for iron in the cave. We had to misiu, which is the copper ore, but we can just say copper ore for reasons that I've described. And from the definite article and ending, we know it's either nominative or accusative singular. We're not sure which it is yet, so we have to look at the rest of the sentence. Then we've got en te spelungi. Spelunks means cave. Here it's governed by en, so it means in the cave. We know it's just one cave because of the form of the definite article and the ending iota. This phrase is dative singular. So we've got the copper ore, or just copper ore, in the cave, and then we've got chodoulos zderte. Chodoulos means the slave, and he is the subject, which we know from the form of the definite article and from the ending, and the verb zderte means he, she, or it looks for. Zderte or is the verb to look for. The ending a has been added to make it third person singular. So he, she, or it looks for, and we know who that he is, namely the slave. So the slave looks for, or is looking for. You could say the copper ore, or just copper ore in the cave. Okay, let's now summarize our learning for this lesson. We have consolidated our knowledge of how to recognize that a noun is a 3E noun or a 3F noun. We have consolidated our knowledge of how 3E nouns and 3F nouns decline. And we have consolidated a lot of our prior learning too, pertaining to the other subgroups. In particular, how to recognize that a noun belongs to one of those other subgroups, and how nouns in those other subgroups decline. We've also met a lot of new nouns, okay? So these are now officially nouns to learn. So please make sure that you have got these noted down for your reference. Now I know that misiu is not the most common word in the world, okay? But it's important to us, okay? I went to the effort of finding it, and so I'm going to use it in my course. It's the only example of a 3F noun other than ustyu that I've seen so far. If you know another one, then share it in the comments, okay? But these are pretty rare, okay? So I'm giving you a gift here, the gift of misiu, the gift of a type of copper ore found in Cyprus. Or at least the word for that type of copper ore. Unfortunately, not the copper ore itself. However, I should say the other words are more useful. But do learn them all. You'll need all of them for my course. We also met a new verb, namely poliorkeor, which means to besiege. We met a new question word, namely poi, meaning where to, but you can just translate it as where, understanding that it's where to. And finally, we met a very small new word, namely or, which means oh. You can use it before a vocative when you're addressing somebody, but it can be omitted from your translation. With that said, thank you very much for watching and for following the course. Please do leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Please also leave a comment if you have any feedback at all. Or if you wish to share any derivatives from any of the new words that we've learned. If you wish to support the channel financially, you can do so by going to www.buymeacoffee.com/learn ancient Greek. For now though, I must say thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you again next time.